Welcome to Elevating Impact, a series of conversations with extraordinary nonprofit leaders across the country. Today, I have Joe Hungler with me of the Boys and Girls Club of Greater Lowell. So thank you, Joe. I really appreciate you joining me.
Well, thanks for having me and appreciate being called extraordinary. I think I have an extraordinary team. I don't know if I am, but the
Well,
always nice to be in that company.
your humility clearly makes you extraordinary as well. So that's
Thank
good.
you.
So can you tell us a little bit about the Boys and Girls Club of Greater Lowell? What are you all focusing on these days?
So I think about 10 years ago, we decided our vision is ending generational poverty. So not just providing a safe place after school, we serve ages 8 to 18, um, and a warm meal and caring adults for today, but to make sure that when they leave at 18, that they have a plan for the future, that it could be college, it could be a trade, it could be getting credentialed and getting the, be a biotech tech or something along those lines, but making sure that they have a path to do that. So we serve right now about a little under 200 kids a day. That's down because of construction. We're in the process of building a teen center, and then we're working on the last funding to allow us to renovate the rest of the building. It's 50 years old and it's time.
Yeah.
So as we do that, our numbers are down a little bit. We used to be close to 300. And when we're done, we should be able to serve close to 600 kids a day. Um,
Wow.
and the big piece of that, which is the background that I have here, is the new entrance to our teen center, and
Mm,
really doubling down on what we're doing for teens, so they have their own entrance, and we can really help them not just have a strong foundation, but like I said, have a path to a career,
wow.
in a plan for the future when they leave.
Gotcha. That's fantastic. And I'd love to hear just a little bit more about what it looks like on the ground to help a teen kind of figure out a path to the future. Do you partner with
Yeah,
companies or people from other sectors?
all the above.
Okay, okay.
um, so we try to start as when they're young, and just exposing them to different careers, whether that's having guest speakers come in or just trying to get as many different things for them to see, field trips, those kind of things, because they have to see it as a possibility for them.
Mm,
Sometimes we live in a neighborhood and there's not a lot of people with a variety of high paying jobs. You don't necessarily see what options are out there.
right.
And just knowing, and then being able to experience people, so you realize that, like, oh, the people who go to college or who become the plumber that has a big business or whatever, they're just like us. They're not like
Mm,
superhumans or you have to be this
right.
or that. And I think that exposure is a really important first step, right?
Mm,
The other first step is making sure basic needs are met. you
mm.
know we had a teacher start giving us money on a monthly basis because when we started doing the meals program, she immediately saw the difference in her second graders in terms of their
Wow.
behavior and how they did in school because they had food in their belly overnight.
Right.
Like, that's such a basic thing, but you're not going to succeed in life if you can't pay attention in school because you're hungry. Like,
Right.
it's easy to say pull yourself up by the bootstraps, but if you don't have a safe place to be, if you don't have that warm meal, you don't have some basic caring adults, all of those pieces are a big part of building the foundation, right?
Right.
And you have to have some joy in your life, right? Too. So we're trauma informed, social emotional learning, but just
Great.
kids want to have fun, right? And
Yeah.
you can't do the things that we want to do. The fun is what helps them connect to our staff, and then
Mm,
the staff can get them involved in the things that are more good for them.
right.
you know, um, and creating incentives to do homework, creating a want to be engaged in the community and learn all those soft skills. So then we start doing things like, okay, let's do some real career exploration, not just, you know, a little bit of seeing it. And they start learning, like, all right, well, this is what it takes to become a nurse. Oh, there's like 5 different levels of nursing and 20 different, probably more 20, different ways of being a nurse.
Mm,
And this is what each level of those costs to do, both in time and in money and location and whatever else.
Yeah.
And then this is what you can make at those different levels. And it's
Okay.
kind of like, oh, and sometimes, and this is what day to day looks like. So what does it look
Right.
like day to day to be a nurse? We all think of like the operating room you see on TV or whatever, but there's a
Right.
thousand different ways to be a nurse. So, and then we try to get kids work experience. So we get some grants that allow us to give work experience at the Boys and Girls Club. Other kids we get to place in the community. We partner with businesses to do a little bit of that. That can be a little more complicated, both with transportation and with different regulations. Because kids that are 18 and under, 18 is a little bit better, but the 17
Right.
and under, like there's a lot of, like, you can't even work in a bank, like, because the bank
Right.
says you have to be 18. And then all the stuff with OSHA and all those kind of things. So,
Right.
but we do get them out, do shadowing. We bring in a lot of folks to expose them to careers. We get them on college campuses. We get them into workplaces. So the design of our building, um, our architect was talking to the kids and said, "What do you want it to look like?" And they said, "We want it to look something like Google, like UKG." UKG is a big payroll company,
Okay.
and they were right down the street from us. So our kids had been there, and from the outside, it looks like it's just brick building, but inside, they had like hanging chairs and the pool tables and like, the trying to be a great place to work, right? So they
Right.
wanted something that felt like that, like a workplace for the future. And we're a
Wow.
Milltown, old Milltown. Um, they wanted something that didn't look like a factory or a school, you
Right.
know?
Right.
And so when the architect went and did the work, he tried to make sure, and when I first saw the design, I was like, that's beautiful, Patrick, who happens to be a club alum, which is pretty awesome. Guy was
Nice.
like one of the top 50 architects in the country.
Wow.
And I said, I can't afford that. And he goes, no, no, no. This is cement board, this is, corrugated metal, and this is tile or
Right.
whatever. So just by changing it up, he has a nonprofit mentality. Like you can
Right.
use things that don't cost a lot of money, you just change up how you use them and it can look good.
Right.
But, you know, the teams are looking at that as the workplace of the future because they got to see someplace like UKG and
Right.
they're like, oh, that can happen in Lowell. And
Right.
I think that them seeing all these things, and then we bring in guests, and what we do there is we'll do like this almost speed dating for careers, and
Ah,
we have about 20 teens will do one of these, and we get 10 people from the community from jobs that the teens ask for, and then 10 that they might not be thinking about.
mm,
So, and then they get to meet all these people. There's a little bit of a formal part, and then there's the informal part. So two things are happening here. You're learning the soft skills, shaking hands, looking in the eyes, asking
yeah.
adult questions, um, as well as, oh, this is what to keep the theme, being a nurse looks like on a day-to-day basis. And
Huh.
sometimes kids do that and they get super excited, and other times they're like, oh no, I want no part of that. So both are just as important, right?
Right.
To figure out what you want to do. One time we placed a kid at with a vet, and she was a senior in high school and wanted to go off and become a vet. That was dead set what she wanted to do. Well, she got there, and the first day in the back, she saw animals in pain. She's like, I can't do this. She worked the rest of the summer in the office,
Wow.
but it saved her from going to school for veterinary
Oh
because
my gosh. Yeah.
seeing animals in pain was not something that she wanted to do. And
Right.
now she's doing great. She ended up working with I think it was City or a group like that. So she's doing youth work now, and
Right.
doing well for herself. She's moved up the ladder.
Nice.
Um, but it's just as important for her to figure out that that's a bad path as it is to see what a good path is. The other
Right.
day we had a judge in, and the kids were all going into it was like, what do I care about a judge? And then all of a sudden they were like, wait, that sounds really interesting. I don't know if they're going to go there, but it helps give them an understanding.
Yeah.
You know, I have, my board members have a backyard barbecue. They're going to see a doctor, a lawyer, a finance person,
Right.
whatever, right? Like
Mhm.
all these different careers. So we look at it as the Boys and Girls Club has to replicate that so that
Right.
our kids can see all the different things that are out there for them.
Right.
And then we have a university, UMass Lowell is a great school right in town. Um, and we have a community college as well, Middlesex Community College. They're both great partners. And part of that is their students come in and give our kids exposure to college students. So again, it doesn't seem
Yeah.
like, oh, this person's not any better than me, you know.
Yeah.
But also we have like the partnership. So we have a couple kids who are going. One of them has an IEP, and so they said, well, why don't you bring them to campus and we'll let them shadow for a day or come to a couple classes or
Yeah.
that type of thing. And they went, and this kid wants to do entrepreneurship. He got accepted into the business school, which is a very good business school, and but he was a little nervous, right? He has an IEP. Do I belong? First generation college student, so nobody's family's going to college.
Right.
He gets in the class and they do an elevator pitches. And all of a sudden he was like, I belong here. I've done an elevator pitch to Lieutenant Governor. I've done one to the Congresswoman. I've talked to the city manager. I've done this. Like he just has talked to everybody and done it well. And he's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
These
Like, I
students are
got
not
this.
like,
Yeah.
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 It's that simple stuff that
Yeah.
matters so much.
Right. Right.
Because for so many kids, it's also little things like, right, there's the friction that happens. We had a kid at the Greater Lowell Technical High School and in plumbing, and you have to buy tools.
Right.
Okay, he can't do that.
Yeah.
So we have a little fund that a donor very generously set up, and we were able to buy him tools. And oh, wait, my dog is going for the pool. David, can you call Coco, please? Sorry about that.
That's okay.
We have a puppy, and she's very much in the bitey stage, wants to chew on everything.
Gotcha.
So I got distracted there. Oh, so he had the tools, and then he was able to do what he needed to do.
Right.
And but we've done that for other kids as well.
Yeah.
So it's also making sure that you can fill in the gaps to make sure that we're not trying to tilt the playing field. We just want a level playing field for our kids. And one of our board members puts it well, like, we want to make sure that they have the same opportunities to learn and grow that their own kids do. So we have a music clubhouse at the club. And you can say, well, what does music clubhouse have to do with end generation poverty? Well, first of all, there's a ton of things that associate music and math in terms of growth.
Oh, yeah,
but
absolutely.
Everything we do is a tool. So whether it's basketball, which is what drew me to the club when I was a kid, or whether it was music or dance or STEM or just, playing foosball. Whatever it is, not so much the foosball, but whatever it is, we try to show like what a pathway is. So, we have one of our alums is out in LA, and he makes beats for famous artists, Jason Derulo, and a whole bunch of folks that cool people know.
Yeah.
And he's coming back this summer, and he's going to come in and help out in our music clubhouse.
Wow.
And our kids can see, like, look, when he first came here, he could play the keyboard in his church choir. He didn't know how to make beats. By the time he left, he was selling those beats for $500 a pop, which at 18 is not bad. Now he sells them for 6 figures. And not every kid is going to do that.
Right.
But seeing that there are pathways, and that, there's also somebody who produces that music. There's also somebody who is the sound guy or the sound girl, like all of those things showing. So what we try to do is introduce and bring in experts, but then also when we have our auction, we want our kids, they perform at it, see that they're part of the community. They also do community events and stuff, but to, this year we're going to have a photography club be the one taking the pictures, and they'll be paid to do that rather than paying somebody, an adult, to do that. And
that's great.
But then they can see, like, okay, this photography could be a job. And we're not saying it should be, but like just showing them, okay, maybe it's a side gig that helps pay your way through college. Maybe it becomes what you do full time. But seeing that your interests can intersect. But the other thing it does is, okay, this is what a gig looks like. When you have a gig, like our musicians who've been doing that at the auction for years, and it's a lot of practice, it's a lot of work to get ready to get up there. So we give them a little bit of money for doing it, not megabucks, but they get something. but it's like, this is a gig. If you're not on time, you lose time. You don't get to play your last song.
Right.
Because
Right.
we got to go, 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 go.
Right.
And they're like, oh, what? But I thought you liked this. I do. And I'm teaching you what it means to have a gig in the real world.
Right.
You know,
Exactly.
because our auction needs to raise $450,000.
Right.
You
Right.
know, and this is the real world.
Yeah. Oh,
You
I
know,
love that. I love that.
um,
It's so great. And I'm
so
listening to you talk about this. One of the themes for this season of the podcast is operational and programmatic efficiency. So it's one of like talk about like paths to stability, making sure that everybody can kind of ride
yeah,
out whatever is happening in our world right now. And
absolutely. Yeah,
listening,
we had a $350,000 cut from federal funding out of a $4.1 million budget, so that has
okay,
not been easy.
no,
Um, I think that a big part of it is communication.
okay,
So when I laid out kind of how we were managing those cuts to the team a
yeah,
month or so ago,
yeah,
I went around to try to get some feedback afterwards, and I'm like, well, you've already been telling us this is coming, so this was not a big deal. I'm not.
right,
It's a big deal. Nobody's happy about it, but
right,
you know, and there were, we've been able to do it. We looked at it early in the year, like, okay, we know something's coming.
right,
So somebody leaves, we're not replacing that person. And we've been able to kind of do some of those things. Now, it means we're not doing a whole lot of outreach right now because
mm,
if you don't have enough staff, it's not going to be safe for the kids.
right,
And if you do it where it's safe, but you're kind of, approaching the limit, well, then you're not going to have quality. And if you don't have quality,
right,
you're not in generational poverty. You're just warehousing kids. And that's not what we're interested in doing. So
right,
I think
right,
that communication is the first part, um, both internally with your staff. I think sharing the problem with everybody is important. So the staff can all say, okay, here's a way that I can save.
mm,
You know,
mm,
I put it to them of, look, we're still going to buy supplies, but the
right,
more money we spend on supplies is less money that I have to spend on staff. So
right,
in the short term, as you're buying something, just keep that in mind,
right,
because we want to stay where we're not laying anybody off,
right,
you know,
right, yeah,
and and they can be part of that. And it also helps them to understand why, hey, my job's harder because so and so's not here.
mm,
You know,
mm,
okay, now I understand why.
right.
And then we're also trying to also ask the question of, okay, what are we not going to do because these people aren't here? You can't just say we're going to do everything
Or keep
without
growing
those
your
people here.
programs, even
Well,
though
that's scary because we're opening a teen center.
I was just gonna say, with how many things you have going on, how do you kind of prioritize your programs and your work?
Everything comes back to ending generational poverty. So what is going to do that? What is going to have the high payoff? And I don't just mean financially, but like high payoff impact on our kids. What are the things that are going to do that? So
Right,
um, I think that we look at it, and it goes back to telling the story. So you got to tell that story to donors.
right,
And the story can't be the sky's falling. No, nobody wants to hear
right,
that. You got to
right.
be realistic, tell that part of the story. But the rest of the story
Everybody's
is look at how
struggling
many
right
kids,
now.
yeah,
Yeah.
look at how many kids just graduated from Lowell High and Lowell Tech, and they're going off to college or they're going to have this job, and talking about the successes, the
Right,
alumni coming back and what they have to say about it. Look at the teen center that's almost done. Hey, we need to staff that now. Um,
right,
and looking at all of those things, so you're consistently telling the story internally and externally, and you never know who's going to end up helping you. So
right.
you really got to dive back into relationships and keep up with those relationships, even though it's harder because there's so much going on and everybody's a little overwhelmed.
Right.
But we just had a community partner reach out and say, hey, look, we can't do this grant anymore. We think you should be part of it. And we'll put in a good word with the funder for you, and we'll partner with another agency to put together something for that. That could
Yeah.
end up being a significant addition to our budget.
Lovely.
But because I kept on talking to this partner, even though sky is falling,
Right.
um, you know, my mantra is control what we can control. What can we
Mhm.
make a difference with, right? We're not
Right.
going to change how much money is coming out of Washington.
Right.
But that doesn't
Exactly.
mean I'm not going to continue to talk to my congresswoman and the Senate offices
Right.
and those kind of things to make sure they know what we're doing and know what's going on, because you never know what is going to pop up and be available. And if they don't
Right.
know your story,
Yeah.
somebody else who's been talking to them they're gonna say, oh, do you want to be part of this? And you're like, hey, what about us? Well,
Yeah. Right. Right.
we got to do
Well,
the work ahead of time.
that's a perfect transition to my last question here is if somebody wants to support you, I assume money works, right? So
Money is absolutely works.
how does somebody
LBG's,
get a hold of you and
yeah.
donate?
LBGC.org is our website. You can also call my direct line is 978-866-9577. You can find us on Facebook and on Instagram. Even if you don't have money, if you're sharing our story, that's a big help.
Okay.
And for folks who are local, we have a ton of volunteers and always need more. Having those mentors that have different life experiences, the more different experiences our kids can see. It can be as simple as a one day helping out serving dinner.
Right.
It could be a regular thing doing homework, coaching basketball, helping with music. There's a gazillion things happening that you could jump in and be a part of.
Perfect, Joe. Well, as the Boys and Girls Club of King County was my first nonprofit job, your organization is very near and dear to me, and I love kind of where you are in the process, and we'll make sure to keep highlighting you along the way. So, Joe,
Well, we
thank you so
appreciate that.
much.
Thanks
Uh,
for the opportunity, and I enjoyed meeting you.
you bet, you bet. Stay tuned for the next episode in our series. Bye.